Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and today I'm joined by someone you all know that I always have so much energy, but today's guest also fills me with energy because she brings so much energy and joy to the table, which makes sense because she is a people lover first and foremost, which I love because it fits in so well with her work. We're going to learn so much from today's guest. Her name is Winnie Talley. She's a people leader with over 15 years of experience in a variety of fields, including administration, human resources, and management. She's served in many different industries and is able to provide direction and guidance with her awareness and extensive skill sets. I'm telling you, she is a joy to learn from. Her perspectives on things that we're going to hear today. As the founder and CEO of People Operations Services, her objective is to continue to learn more and do more. She's a strong believer in adopting mechanisms that can not only lead to success, but also create a long-term positive change. Winnie aims to continue to earn trust and remain reliable and supportive as she partners with businesses to enhance their cultural growth and organizational effectiveness with procedural administration. There's so many things that we can take from today and apply to our own businesses. So I'm so excited. Let's dive straight into my interview with Winnie Talley. All right, Winnie, I'm always excited, but I'm particularly excited because I know that you also are going to add to it today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, Brian, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here. I'm so grateful to be here today. Thank you so much.
It's always great for me to meet other people. I don't always hear people who are just like, I love humans. And Winnie, I feel like it was such a big part of my research into your work. Fill in those gaps for people. I told them a little bit about you in your bio, but listeners always love hearing it. What's your story? How'd you get here?
Well, Brian, to be honest, it was strictly obedience. Just a few history on it. A year ago, one of my best friends, she came to me and she said, you should start your own HR firm. You love people. You love being around people. You love to see people succeed, and you should start your own HR firm. I told her no. I want to go to school, finish college. After I finish college, get a good job, and that's it. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Fast forward a year later, I was at the hair salon. My stylist was booked. So I booked a random stylist that I found. And we got there and she started talking about passion and purpose. And she's an entrepreneur and she was talking about her passion for what she does. And then I started telling her about my passion for what I do. As an HR professional, my passion is people. I love to see people succeed. I love to see people excel. I love to see organizations pour into their people. And I told her, I said, hey, that's what I love to do. And we just got to exchanging more words. And she said, you should start your own HR firm. The difference between last time my best friend brought it up to me, she and I was talking about entrepreneurship, and she made me feel more confident in maybe I could do it. And I said, I don't know. She said, listen, I'm going to send you some tools. I want you to do some research. Once you do the research, then you are going to want to be an entrepreneur, I'm telling you. And I said, okay. Days later, she sent me over, as she said, the information to start my own firm. I did my research. And so oddly, I started wanting to have the desire to open my own firm. I didn't know where it came from. And I said, okay. So I started looking into things, reaching out to my contacts. And I said, you know what? Yes, I will start my own HR firm. So merely, it was obedience, because at first I didn't want to do it. But months before I had got introduced to this new hairstylist, I had gave my life to Christ. And I surrendered everything about me. And I want to know who I was destined to be. And so when I surrendered myself, I started learning new things about who I was destined to be. And one of the things, and I don't want to get too deep dive into it, but one of the things that I noticed while I was in the process of starting a firm, all the desires that I have was for my people, my passion for people. It was actually my purpose. It was my purpose of life. That's why I enjoyed it. I soon realized that my passion was my purpose or is my purpose. And so that's how I got started. I said yes. And every time I have given God a yes, He's blessed me. So 2 months after that conversation with that hairstylist, whom I do not go to today, I like to deem her as my destiny helper. I don't talk to her. We don't meet. She's gone. But she gave me the tools and she dropped that seed in me. And now we have people operation services because of it.
Yeah, I love that overview, Winnie, for so many reasons. It fits in with what I said in the intro to this episode, that it almost seems like it's your calling because of your love for people. It just seems like such a natural fit. But hearing that even it took some, whether it's divine intervention or some sort of catalyst for you to say, you know what, it's time to step into what I was meant to step into. And I love that. And so much of what you talk about within the nature of your work, when we hear, HR, there's so many aspects of HR. We could talk about benefits, we could talk about paperwork, we could talk about so much of it, but I love that your work, when you view HR, you really view it as the people element. And one word that came to mind so much when I was researching your company and your work ahead of today's session was engagement. You talk so much about engagement and why if you can activate the people that work within a company, that's what gets them engaged, that's what gets a business engaged and flourishing. Talk to us about what engagement means to you and why that's such a focal word for you when it comes to HR.
Well, a lot of times people, and what I've seen with organizations, they focus on the what and the why. They never focus on the how. So when you go to a job, it says in the interview purpose, they say, what skill sets do you have? What can you offer us? Okay, now after you get the job, then 6 months to a year, they say, well, why do you choose us? For marketing purposes, you see a lot of leaders saying, hey, this is why you should come work here. And they use the team members to say, why? Such as because it helped me, graduate from school, or this was my first job. They gave me a yes. They really solely focus on the what and the why. They never ask, how do you feel? How do you feel when you come to work every day? How do your leaders make you feel? How do you feel to wear our company logo? And essentially, I believe organizations don't ask that question because they don't feel that it's important. But the reality is, however that employee says they feel, that's the reality of your culture. Wherever there's lack, people operation services have services that come in and help organizations for where they're lacking in that area. But I have seen year over year, organization by organization, that they lack the how, the people part of an organization. And so my job and one of my purposes are to help organizations see their people as people and not numbers, and ask those critical questions. How do you feel? How do I make you feel? How do my leaders make you feel? Do you feel appreciated? Do you see seen? Do you feel inclusive? Do you feel like our culture is diverse? How do you feel? And many organizations don't ask that question. And I feel like it's very important, because whatever the answer is to that question, that's the reality of your organization. So I feel like engaging with your people is critical. It's critical because engagement is more than just having fun. Engagement is being aware of what's going on in the field. If you don't engage, even with the leaders, we have leadership trainings. Even if you're not engaging with those leaders and saying, hey, what can we do to help you be a better leader? If we're not engaging with our leaders, then naturally our leaders won't engage with our team members. So we start from the top, and essentially the top is the team members, and then we work our way down. Engaging is critical and it's vital to organizations.
Yeah, I love that, Winnie, especially because, I mean, you really called out, I believe that there's so much that we can learn from the contrast. And you painted that contrast for us of calling out corporations. How often do we say, oh, they treat employees like numbers? Or when we hear about the numbers, the KPIs that they do report on, it's revenues, expenses, profits. It's those things that they focus on. And we've all heard it within the business terms of, what you measure is what you manage. And we're great at measuring all these financial metrics, not so great at measuring the people metrics. And I know that it's such a core part of what you do is you're saying, hey, if you care about the people, you'd measure your engagement, you'd measure the performance, you'd measure. One thing you talk about that I haven't heard a lot of HR professionals talk about is the prosperity of your employees. Are your employees growing, winning, being rewarded? That's the stuff that matters. I'm curious to hear your perspectives on that, because it is hard for a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, corporations to start assigning, hey, this is our North Star. This is what we want to work towards, because it's not as easy to measure. Talk to us about some of those measurements from a people perspective.
Well, I like to look at, that's a great question, Brian. And I like to look at it like thriving, like planting, right? So you have your foundation. Your foundation is your organization. And then you have your seeds. Your seeds are your people. And then you have your fertilization. You have your soul, your leaders. And in order for those three to work, you must have energy and you must have rain, water source. I like to look at the water source as engagement, because in order for a seed to thrive, to prosper, it must be watered. In order for anything to happen. So what happens when you're planting, right, and it rains, the rain loosens up the soil so that the soil, who's your leadership, can break up the seed, and the nutrients from the soil goes down to the seed. And then that's how you thrive. Organizations, once you have the idea, you're just the foundation, but it doesn't move without the people. Essentially, and like I tell my team, people are the heartbeats of the organization. You can't produce anything without the people. You can have the soil, you can have the layout, you can have the foundation, but without the people, it's nothing. And so in order for those people to thrive, you have to give them a water source, energy. You have to give them that engagement. And you say, what is energy? Well, energy is the sun, of course, but the energy is the culture of the organization. So you're saying, you know what, our culture here is built off engaging with our leadership and with our people. And in order to measure that, it's real simple. In order for you to thrive, you have to pour into your people. You have to pour into your leaders so that your leaders can pour into your team members. And it has to be resourceful, and it has to be not an option. It's vital. So water, if you have a plan without water, then it doesn't thrive. It has to be part of the plan. It has to be part of the action plan, because that's how important it is for people. A lot of times organizations, they have their people and they have their leadership and they have their team members, and then they have the organization without any cultural mindsets of engaging with their people. It's just there. And what happens is it survives. It survives because it may rain and may not. So they may give them something once a year and they make it last. So it's a difference between existing and thriving. If you want to see your organization thrive, you have to have consistency. You have to be having consistent water source, consistent engagement. So I like to metaphorically put it in a perspective where people can enjoy and can understand. So if you look at an organization and you say, how important is engagement? Engagement is equally important to a thriving of a company, because you have to pour into the people. Because I tell you now, what we've noticed is that the generation now, they're looking for engagement. They're looking for a place of belonging. And if they don't have it, then they're leaving. So some organizations are having revolving doors. It's because they're not poured into. We can't do the same thing. I was talking to a group of leaders and I was quoting a quote. I said, old ways do not open new doors. Essentially, that means you cannot do something new by having an old mindset. People don't like to change the way they think because they get comfortable in the comfortability of security. I always done it this way. For the last 10, 15 years, we have been thriving. We've been doing good. Let's keep it this way. But in order to see a new height in numbers, a new challenge being met, you have to do something new. People fear the unknowing, but fear is just an emotion. It's just an emotion of an unfavorable outcome. So if you change the way you think and you say, you know what, I'm going to engage with my people and I'm going to make them feel appreciated. I'm going to be diverse with my leadership. I'm going to be diverse in my culture. I want to be inclusive. I want to know their mindsets. I want to know what they think, because that's the way we innovate. We innovate because there is going to be a mastermind in an area that we lack in. A lot of times you don't even realize that you have a superstar on your team because you don't engage with them. And you're not opening the doors for innovation. You're not opening doors for inclusiveness. And it's very important. So when I say measuring, when you say measuring how important it is, it's vital, just as water to a plant. Because if you do not have that consistent water source, that plant dies eventually. It goes from surviving to dying. But if you have that consistent water source, that consistent engagement, that plant will soon thrive. And the culture is set on the energy. And the young people like to say, if the energy is not good, I left. Or the energy was up. The energy was up. We was having a good time. And that's how they measure the energy. We have to be relatable. We have to be inclusive. We have to be diverse. And in order to be those things, you must first engage. Engaging is the first thing. The first thing is talking to the people. And then everything else falls in its place. That's why all of our services are circled around engaging, because it's a collaborative. You have to be collaborative and you have to engage with your people. In order to build trust, you have to engage. They have to feel that their words matter. And it's not just falling on deaf ears. It's very important. And I've seen organizations that we've partnered with, culture change. They tell us, man, people love coming to work because they have consistency. They have consistency. They went from having one engagement event a year to have them all year long. Every month, we're celebrating our people. We're loving on our people. Our people are appreciated. And essentially, when people feel appreciated and they feel poured into, they will give you all of them. They will work hard and be happy to do so. But when you don't pour into them and you give them the bare minimum, they're going to give you the bare minimum. And so we teach organizations how to pour into their people and how to be more inclusive. And it all begins with engaging. You have to engage.
Yeah, I love that overview, Winnie. I'm so glad that that's the where I wanted to start this conversation, because gosh, engagement, the way that you talk about it with the plant analogy, for example, I love that illustration. As a visual person, it's something I can grasp onto. And then it's funny, when I asked you about engagement, I didn't picture consistency as such a key part of that, but it's something that you shared with us so many times just right there in that answer. And it made me think back to jobs and internships, especially that I had, where I was like, yeah, some weeks were fun in the office, but then there were the weeks where, especially if it was like quarter close, when I had finance internships, those weeks were miserable. And you're right. If it's that lack of consistency, you don't know, should I look forward to work today or should I not? That's when you're always on eggshells. That's the feeling that I always had in those types of jobs. And it's funny how you tie it all into culture, because it makes me start thinking about the jobs, the internships that I had. And I'm just like, yeah, those companies, the ones where there was that lack of consistency, there was that lack of engagement. You said one event a year. It's exactly the first company I worked for. I can think of that. We had one beach volleyball day a year, and 90% of us didn't even like beach volleyball. And so when you talk about engagement, I'm just thinking, thinking, yeah, there was no set culture. They thought that putting a wallpaper on all of our corporate computers with a phrase that they came up with, that set the culture. That wasn't the real culture. Winnie, I've got to ask you about culture because clearly you have strong opinions about engagement. I want that equivalent for culture. How the heck do we create a culture? You talk about it being an energy. You and I are both energetic people that tap into the energy of people around us, but that's not always something that everyone can say as a business owner, okay, this is how I'm going to create it. So what are those aspects of culture that we can intentionally and strategically build and implement in our businesses?
That's a great question. And I always tell organizations, you have to be diverse. In order to build your culture, it has to be diverse. So, infinity groups, right? So, engaging with your people, finding out who you are, what's the demographic of your workplace. When you've realized the demographic of your workplace, and then you can zoom in on different things, different cultures. You're going to have people from all over the world. Many organizations that I've worked with that have several different cultures and identities as there is already. So when you engage with them, the first thing that I do with organizations is give them a visual of their organization because a lot of people don't have them. That's why we do demographic analysis for organizations. So number one, you will know what you're dealing with and what you're working with. And then once you realize what you're dealing with, what you're working with, then you start tailoring things to acknowledge them. You know, if you have a lot of Hispanic heritages or in your demographic, you're going to do things that says, hey, I see you. I know you're here and I'm doing this for you. Let's come together and tell me what you would like to see. What are some of the holidays that you enjoy doing? That's how you build your culture. You first see what you have, and then you zoom in and engage with those people, with your people. And once you engage with them and you start saying, okay, what are some of the things that you enjoy? What are some of the things that you like? What can we do to better assist you? That's why we have coaching and mentorship programs that we give to organizations so that you can help people, right? So the culture essentially is the programs that you have, the acknowledgement that you have. How are you acknowledging your people? Are they just coming in, doing their work and just leaving? Or do you know who they are? Do you know them by name? Do you know anything about them? That's why we have different programs so that team members, they can get to know, team leaders can get to know their team members. So we can say, okay, you know what? We have a lot of dog lovers. I think we should bring your dog to work day. The culture can only be set when you are intentional by interacting with your people. That's how you set your culture. Because you said, I know that I have a group of dog lovers. And here at this organization, we have 600 dog lovers in this building. So we're going to have a day where they can come in and bring their animal with them, bring a dog with them. You have to build your culture on engagement. That's the only way. That's why engagement is critical. You cannot build a culture by not knowing the demographic of your team. You have to know your team. You have to know your people. You have to do an analysis and be intentional and saying, I want to do better. I want to be diverse because not everybody's going to like volleyball. Some people like basketball. Some people like soccer. Some people like golf. Let's do a questionnaire and find out what our people like instead of just giving them what we think they like. We build our culture on interacting with our people. And once you find out what it is that they need and how you can better assist them, that's how you build a culture. You inviting your people in. And that there gives you I like to tell people when you pour into your people, you have an advantage because you are an asset. A lot of organizations don't pour into their people. A lot of organizations don't even know the culture. They like to say, our culture is this. But then contrary to that, someone else was going to say, no, that's definitely not our culture here. They don't even care about us. They don't know nothing. We just work for 10, 12, 8 hours a day. But then yet we see commercials and marketing materials saying that our culture is built off love and family. We never even had a family day. How our culture built off family? We never even had a family day. It's not true. You need to interact with your people, and you need to find out what it is that you can do to pour into your people. Essentially, if you want to grow in anything, I don't care what it is, you have to be selfless and you have to pour into others in order for you as an individual, as an entrepreneur to thrive. You have to pour your passion and your purpose into someone else. Because if you're not pouring into someone else, you are not even going to thrive. So organizations must get to know their people. That's how they build a culture. Find out the demographics and create your culture on diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, Winnie, it almost makes me feel a little silly for the way that I phrase the question, because I'm thinking of it from the business's perspective, and you immediately, and I want to call this out for listeners because I think it's absolutely brilliant the way that you answered that. And obviously this is your approach to the work that you do, but you said, hold on, it's not even about us intentionally or strategically building a culture. The culture comes from the people. That's the good thing. It almost feels like, and I'm calling myself out here because as entrepreneurs, we run our own businesses. We service clients. We wear a million different hats in our day-to-day lives. A lot of times it feels like we need to have the answers, but I actually like your approach a million times more because you're saying you don't have to have the answers in building the culture. The culture lives within your people. Look at your team. And where I'm going with this is, for me, myself, learning from you here on the air, is I'm thinking about my team. So we have a team of people all over the world on the podcasting team and my different businesses. So a lot of our stuff happens on Slack. And something that I love about our Slack culture is that we always share funny memes every week. If there's a song that we all like on the team, people will drop their Spotify links in there. And I love how open we share all of those things. And we've got people in Colombia, people all across the US, people in Asia. And so it always is that mix. Like, it's almost as if we're always looking for an excuse to celebrate anything and everything. Oh, it's this holiday in the Philippines? I don't know anything about it, but Dominic, fill us in, teach us about it. So I love that, but I'd love to hear, because I'm sure you have some tricks up your sleeves. You talked about like questionnaires, for example, for those engagement events. What other ways, what other mechanisms or strategies do you have that we can start tapping into and opening up to listening, to hearing, to seeing and understanding the people that are around us on all of our different teams?
That's another good question, Brian. And what I like to do for leaders, we have leadership training. And what we do, we teach leaders how to engage with their people. We teach leaders on how to be intentional with their people. When you learn, from a leader standpoint, when you learn how to engage with the people and how to talk to them and how to use different strategies to pull information out of them, then your job as a leader gets so much easier. Now, we also have coaching and mentorship programs, because even a leader needs a leader, right? And so sometimes the leader is lacking because he's looking for direction. What I've noticed, and from talking to many leaders throughout different organizations, is they're good at one thing. And that one thing, that one skill set has promoted them to become a leader. But they're lacking in other things. And they want to know how can I be more empathetic? I'm more of a coach. I can get them there, but I need a mentor because I want to go to the next level. Well, that's why we have coaching and mentorship programs. And with the coaching and mentorship program, you don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be a mentor. We teach you how to be one. We give you the materials to teach you. All you have to do is have a willing heart. If your heart is in the right place to receive, then you can then pour into your other people. And so the question is, how do we engage? How do we keep it fun? Once you talk to your people, it come naturally. Just as you said, on your guys' calls, y'all drop your lyrics and do different things, to keep it going. What we have is a full cycle engagement program. That full cycle engagement program consists of a year long of material, 6 months of continuous engagement calendars so that people can have something to look forward to. We have so many programs and different materials that we use to help organizations get engaged with their people. We don't just put you out there alone. With our programs, with People Operation Services, and what I love about me and my team is that we come wherever you are. Wherever you are in the world, we travel to you. Once you get those services and you say, hey, I know it's something that we need. I just don't know how to implement it. No worries. My team and I will fly out to you and we will implement it. We will train you. We will train your trainers so that you can be confident in the material you have. We will make sure that you are confident. I was talking to another leader just a couple days ago, and I was asking, deep diving and asking questions. Well, the leader was not in a position to answer those questions and was getting frustrated because they was being stretched. It wasn't the questions. It's the fact that they didn't have the answer to the question that made them frustrated. And it was stretching their ability. But then it's okay. We give you the materials to stretch your leaders so that they're confident in what they're doing. Leaders get frustrated when they don't have the answers. And the reason why they don't have that is because leaders needs to be stretched. And in order to stretch the leader, you need to be able to pour into them and give them answers that they don't have. So that when a team member comes to them and asks the answer to them, it's all, Brian, I'm telling you, everything comes from engaging. You say, hey, how do we keep it fun? Well, with the full cycle engagement program, we give you calendars, we give you consistency, we show you how to keep it fun, and we teach you even how to keep going forward. We teach you everything. But essentially, you have to know the demographic, because what we might consider fun, they may not. I recently stopped watching TV altogether. It's so weird because I used to be a binge watcher. I would watch TV for hours. I love cooking shows. I love animal shows, and I would just watch them for hours. But now I don't even want to watch TV. I rather read. I rather read a book. I rather cook. So now I'm into cooking. So be good for one. It's not going to be good for all. You have to interact. You got to look at your demographic, and you have to pour into your people where it's going to be impactful and effective. So it all boils down to engaging with your people.
Yeah, Winnie, gosh, such a strong message, and one that really, I feel like you set such a high barrier of success, a high standard for success really is what it comes down to for us as business leaders, as the leaders, the captains of our business ships and of our teams. It really, I think it does two things actually, Winnie, that I'm going to call out. One, I think you give us a very high standard that we should strive for, but two, I actually think that in a really helpful way, you take the pressure and the stress off of us as business leaders, and you say, hey, let it come down to the people. Let yourself just open, be listening, be receptive towards what your team is made up of, and let that guide you instead of you having those answers. So many different takeaways from these answers that you've been sharing with us. Listeners know this, Winnie, but at the end of episodes, I always love giving my guests the hardest job and leaving you with considering all these different things that we talked about. Listeners are for sure going to have their homework. Listeners, you're going to want to check the show notes down below because we'll summarize so many of these takeaways that Winnie is sharing with us. But Winnie, what's your one piece of advice for listeners who at the end of this episode, they're saying, gosh, I haven't really put the intention behind all this stuff that Winnie's sharing. What is the one thing that you think every business owner should sit down with, having listened to our conversation today, and ask themselves, or something that they should do to start creating this engagement on their teams, to start having their teams unlock themselves, building that culture and achieving even more in our businesses?
The first thing I would say, Brian, is look at engagement. And if you notice that there's a lack thereof, or there's areas of opportunity, then do something about it. Talk to your team members and find out what it is that they want. Find out how your leaders feel about coming to work each day. Would they like a coach or a mentor? Look at your organization as a whole and say, you know what? There's something that I can do. And if there is something that you would like to see done, give us a call. We will come, we will help you. Our services will help you. If you are a team member and you're listening and you say, I want to become an entrepreneur, but I don't know how to get there, but I want to pour into people. Find out what your passion is. See what it is that in your organization that you're in right now that you would like to see change. I challenge you to go to your human resource department and say, hey, listen, I would like to see this change. I would like to see more engagement. I would like to see more involvement in this area. If they do it, then you won. If they don't, then use that as the motivation to pour into your own company. Fund your company with your current job and be the change that you want to see. You can do it. Business owners, it's okay if you don't know. It's okay. It's okay if you're scared. It's okay if you don't know where to begin. That's why in our organization is so critical, and we love what we do because we want to help people just like you. The ones that don't know what to do, don't know how to get started. We come and we help you. We hold your hand throughout the whole process. We build relationships. So it's not just our client. So if you want to know where to go, just come see us, call us, and we'll help you wherever there's lack. We want you to pour into your people because that's how you're going to thrive.
All right, Winnie, I love that advice. So much of it really speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit, that hustle that you're talking about. And I particularly love with your HR hat on, talking to all those people, which the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur community, so many listeners do have those 9-to-5 jobs. And I love your encouragement. It's a transition you've gone through yourself that if you don't feel that value, if you don't feel engaged with where you are, put your entrepreneurial hat on and make a difference. There's so many ways to make a difference. Winnie, you've shared with us so many different aspects of all of this. I love how you break it down into your 5 different programs, your 4 components of that, the full cycle engagement planning program, diversity and inclusion, coaching and mentoring, as well as your leadership training and development program. Good advice there. But Winnie, as we always close out these episodes, I want you to take this stage. Listeners are going to be keen to learn more about you, about people, operations, services. So drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yes, so online, everything is online. You can go to www.peopleoperations.com. That's PPL operations with an S.com. From there, you'll be able to read about what we do. You'll be able to sign up for services. Everything is done right there. So one-stop shop. You can reach out to the team. You can call us. You can message us. You can just sign up. And from services right there from our web, we would love to come and pour into your organization and your people and help you do it. So you're not alone. We offer coming to you and to help you in any area where you see.
All right, listeners, you know the drill. You just heard from Winnie herself. You heard how much she loves this stuff, how much she's focused on helping all different types of businesses at all different sizes grow. And she dropped the link on us right there. Her company is People Operations Services. Her website is pploperations.com. Check the links down below wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. Hit those show notes because we're linking to Winnie's business's website as well as her personal LinkedIn, because it's always great to connect with entrepreneurs, fellow entrepreneurs, whether within the scope of what they do or just having incredible people in your network, of which, Winnie, you've shared so much of your knowledge and experiences with us here today. So thank you so much for coming on to the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.